All right, I've picked up a couple of titles from Strategy and Tactics and Decision Games. I recently read a book about the charge of the Light Brigade called Hell Riders. That was just a fantastic book of sort of how the Light Brigade ended up in the position that they were in with the officers that they had, and a detailed analysis of the mistakes that were made leading up to the charge, and then a detailed breakdown of how the charge itself went. Just very, I don't know, concise, well written, informative, and not a super lengthy read, not overly dry. It was interspersed with lots of contemporary accounts from people who took part in the charge and who witnessed the charge, and which was a major focus of the author in the book, was to include those voices from the people that were actually involved. But anyway, the reading of it got me into wanting to look at Crimean War games, of which there are not a lot to choose from. I picked up this old S&T from the 90s era, when all the S&T covers were just dull as shit like this. The painting's fine, but this is before they had at least made some effort at graphic design like they did. This one's from 2012, where they've at least done some color matching and made the artwork bigger, and everything in the 90s had this sort of like gradient tone, bland backgrounds with an inset picture, and then just boring fonts. I don't know, the DG graphic design, I've gone on and on about this in videos before. It's leaves a lot to be desired until you get to more recent releases of theirs. These are all of the Battles in the East titles, which this is like this sort of thing where you would do a picture montage from different games in the series to create an overall picture, is just something that I never would have thought DG would do in 1,000 years. Typical DG graphic design is just this kind of shit that looks like somebody did it, on a like Windows 95 computer with, I'm surprised it's not pixelated, frankly. It's just awful. It's improved. Again, this was their recent Blue and Gray Deluxe, not the cutting edge of graphic design, but certainly looks professional compared to just the amateurish crap of older titles that they would do. And then their Axis Empires Ultimate Edition and this Operation Typhoon, both, but this particularly just fantastic graphic design, beautiful package of just completely different, unlike anything that DG Games has ever done before. Most of their stuff, like I said, is just amateurish and god awful over the years, and certainly the 90s era S&T magazines are in that boat. So I just grabbed this, and none of these are particularly highly rated on Board Game Geek, or highly regarded by wargamers that I know that have played them or dabbled in the particular systems. I myself played and did some videos on this, which again, you can't hardly read the cover because their graphic design choices were so terrible. But the campaigns of the French Foreign Legion from issue 200 of S&T. I don't know that I did the Algeria campaign in this, but I did the Dahomey and Tonkin games. And first of all, they were riddled with errata, and I think and missing charts. Like I had to create a chart on some notebook paper to there was like an off map thing where you were supposed to put casualties or something like that. I had to just create my own because it didn't come with it. So those games were pretty terrible. They just were not balanced and riddled with errata. These are the same system. These two Sun Never Sets. The Crimean War is a different system. It's more of a strategic or operational level system. It may be similar to the system that they used for like the Franco-Prussian War. I don't know. I think it's a Joe Miranda design. Yeah, Joe Miranda. But I think it's a system that's been used for operational or war, covering whole wars, for some other conflicts from similar eras. But I was interested in at least giving it a try and seeing how it would play out. The counters are, and this is sort of an unboxing video, and so much as you can unbox a magazine game, but it's super glossy, but functional counters. Nothing to really write home about. We got the NATO iconography on them. They're at least easy to read. Even the ones with the green text on them are okay. The red ones are a little, and if you're colorblind, I guess, good luck reading those orange ones with the green text on them. Maybe that would just, hopefully wouldn't appear universally gray to somebody with color blindness, but yeah, like having red and green counters, those are going to look the same if you're colorblind. So not exactly colorblind friendly. Like most S&T games, I usually, the rules are always in the middle of the magazine, so you can just bend the tines up on the staples, pull the rules out, bend those back, and then I just take two loose staples and pop them in to the existing holes, and then bend the tines over to have a actual functional rule book that's not sliding apart. So that's how I usually handle that. This one had the problem of having an extra page. You can see it's like an order form for their Desert Fox games on the one side, but there was this table that was still in the magazine after I pulled the rules out, so I had to slice this page out on its own, meaning that ordinarily the corresponding page, this page here with this guy on it, would have been on the other side of I think it was actually like this on the other side. So I had to cut, when I cut that out, this would have left this page, coming out of the magazine. So I just threw some bookbinder tape, archivist tape on there to keep this page in place in the magazine and not sliding out. So, you had to do a little arts and crafts, to make the old S&T magazines work. That's not how the more recent S&T worked, where they had the rule book already bound with two sets of staples, and then it was held in by the center staple here, and so you would bend that up, pull this out, bend that back, but then you didn't have to do what I did there, which was get your own loose staples and slot them into the holes and bend the tines over yourself. It was just already ready to go. And now I think they don't even do the staple thing in the modern S&T. The most recent S&T I have, I think, is this Sandawana one, where I think the rules were actually just used that, like, stuck in there with the tacky glue or whatever, and you just peel them out, and then you can peel the glue tack off of the rules, and they're ready to go. I don't think they do the stuff with the staples anymore. But these two, this is the volume 2 of Sun Never Sets. This is the original Sun Never Sets, which I think this came out, I don't know, also maybe in the late 90s, or yeah, it is 1997. So again, the height of DG's graphic design in the 90s. I'm going to unfold this map so we can see the Crimean War map. The nice thing about this is that it's not the heaviest paper, but it is flat, i.e. it's not glossy, which is nice. I wish that were the case for most maps. It's a flat paper. This is a little, it's not that thin. I mean, it's a pretty decently heavy paper. Probably on par with what like Clash of Arms does on their games, but it doesn't have that nice finish that the Clash of Arms games have. But as you can see here, typical DG Again, DG graphic design, just entirely functional, but without the color choices or uh, fonts and placement, etc., that a like classic Redmond Simonson SPI design would have. So it took like all of the bare bones functionality of Simonson's designs and removed all of the charm and graphic capability that Simonson had. So you end up with typically most DG maps from this era are very, I don't know, very bland and fairly boring. But really, as DG maps go, this one's not too bad. There's actually some decent, the trees are represented nicely there. The fonts are, for the most part, readable. But yeah, this is better than some. The actual map graphics are better than some DG maps of the era. The coloring is very yellow. Everything's very yellow. So yeah, this is 98. So this would be the year after Sun Never Sets came out. But I am interested in playing this just to see how it games out the Crimean War. I need to check Rata though, because if the Foreign Legion was any indication, this era was not great for games, for DG games not having just like game breaking or terrible errata. This says includes a bonus game with additional scenarios. That bonus game, and I'll remove the actual Sun Never Sets stuff. And the bonus game is the campaigns of the French Foreign Legion. That's right, the very game that was in this issue of Strategy and Tactics. So since this came out in 2000, I think, yeah. This came out later, so this is like a later printing of the box. They must have had a bunch of extra copies of the French Foreign Legion game, and so decided, hey, let's stick it into the Sun Never Sets because it's the same system. And then they just slapped the sticker on here because there's no reference on the back of the box to any of this. So, or maybe there is. I don't recall there being when I looked at it the other night. Yeah, they just used the sticker. Included, French Foreign Legion. Yeah, used the same system as Sun Never Sets, and covers several 19th century conflicts and engaged the French Foreign Legion. Got Algeria, Dahomey, and the Tonkin War, some components. So they just did it with a sticker there and a sticker here. But it is a substantial inclusion. I mean, it's a whole, it's another 3 whole scenarios. It's like doubling the size of what you would get in there. So, but I don't need it. I'll probably keep it just because it is part of this version of this printing of Sun Never Sets. So I'll probably keep it, but leave it unpunched in the box because I've already got a punched copy. I suppose I could sell the punched copy. And I remember this being kind of expensive at the time. I think I paid somewhere between $50 and $75 for it probably. And, again, because of all the errata and the poorly balanced scenarios, it was not worth it. So, at least in this, it would come free, although this wasn't that cheap either because it's gotten harder to find over the years. So here are the counters, and interestingly, I got this off eBay, so it was, a reseller. These are the Zulu war counters, which has your British and your Zulus and some markers. I don't know if the markers they do look specific to the Zulu War, so maybe all Zulu War. Then you've got these 2 like 3/4 counter sheets for the March to Peking, marked A and B. So these are going to be your respective forces and markers for the March of Peking. And these counters are a little more characterful because you can see they've got these look like those commanders there. I believe so. Or maybe just the names of the cavalry units that they're part of it. They've got cannon and cav, so a little more illustrative, even though these are still kind of like operational as opposed to strictly tactical breakdowns of these campaigns. So, but, a little more, I don't know, character to these counters, with some illustrations and stuff on them compared to the Crimean War, which was strictly NATO. So that's the March to Peking, the Zulu War, and then you've got the Sudan campaign. And it is it the whole Sudan? March to Peking Zulu campaign and the Sudan covers 3 separate campaigns. There's the 83 to 85 Modest Uprising, the Defensive Khartoum by General Gordon, and the 96-98 campaign, which I believe that one was the one that had the Battle of Omdurman in it that Churchill was part of. So it would stand to reason there's more counters here for the Sudan campaign because you've got multiple different years, multiple different campaigns. So there's going to be different counters for the different campaigns. This also included, however, a Sun Never Sets, which you can barely read there, but Sun Never Sets errata counters. And so one of the nice things DG does is they will print the errata counters and usually send them to you if you've ordered the game through them. So this must have been, I don't know how you'd get these now. Surely DG probably doesn't have them on hand anymore because it's 25 years ago. And they wouldn't, like trying to find them from a collector that says, hey, I've got this little unpunched errata counter. So this was another selling point of this on eBay for me, was that this, I saw in the pictures that it included this errata counter sheet. Now I need to go through and examine or go online and find out if they've listed what these replace. Are these strictly replacing other counters in the Sun Never Sets game, or are some of them additional counters that they created that were left out? Or, you always have to go through and figure that out. Like, are you swapping out counters one for one? Or are these adding counters that weren't printed but should have been, type thing? So I'll figure that out and figure out where these go. But this is nice to have because it shows there was not an insignificant amount of errata counters from the game. You're looking at what, how many is that? 6, there's 10 counters per row. So 40 errata counters. Not great. But here's the rule book. And again, standard DG type rules. This at least is flat paper as opposed to, it does have a page of design and player notes there. And then the scenarios and stuff in the back. But these, it's flat paper for these rules, which is nice compared to the magazines, which are going to have the glossier rule books. You've got 2 player aid cards on fairly flimsy cardstock, but all very functional. And then you've got a couple of maps, and I don't think any of these are double-sided, although it seems like since there's 2 maps that they could have made them double-sided, but I don't know, maybe in this era it was even more expensive to print double-sided than it would have been just to print 2 maps. But these also flat maps on, again, not the worst paper stock, not the greatest either, but again, super functional in terms of graphics and design, and in this case, the map graphics not as good as what they are on the Crimean War map. They are as bland and dull as they are on the French Foreign Legion maps, and indeed look almost the same. And again, they are the same system, so it stands to reason that the maps would look the same. But again, not even just uninspired graphics otherwise, but functional, gets the job done. You've got the March to Peking map here, very long, narrow map, and then you've got the Zulu War map over here, where you can see an interesting spelling of Rourke's Drift. Usually it's spelled O-R or R-O-R-K-E. as opposed to Roarke. And then Asanawana, that at least is spelled right. But yeah, it's right across the river from each other. So that's where those two battles took place. But you're going to be doing the whole Zulu War, which will eventually end up at, well, that says Undi. Is that supposed to be? No, there's Ulundi. So that's the capital there. So eventually it will be driving in that direction. But yeah, not super inspired. And then there is the maps for the Sudan. And this has the river war in the Sudan, and the lighting isn't super great here, I guess. Got these spotlights up above that I use as a way to, that way I can aim them around the tables based on how the map configurations are. But it's the river war, looking at the Sudan. This is the Nile, the White Nile, and the Blue Nile, where they split there at Khartoum. That would be where you're going to be doing whatever the defense, Gordon's defense of Khartoum. So it's going to all take place there. But the map allows for the other components of the campaign as they go on. They do have plenty of tables on the map. Again, they're all functional, but I do like it when there's more tables on the map. More likely to see it in magazine games because they don't want to print lots of extra player aids for magazine games. But for box games these days, nobody puts tables on the maps anymore, which I kind of miss. I don't know, there's something, maybe I'm just being nostalgic about it, but I like maps that have plenty of tables integrated into them, especially if they can do it in a graphically interesting or thematic way, with whatever it is whatever game you're particularly playing. But anyway, that's a look at those campaigns from the original Sun Number sets, then the Sun Number sets Volume 2. And this is Abyssinia, Asante, Persia, and the Second Afghan War. I'm not sure how much the system evolved, if at all, in here. It did mention that they do like red for important notes and blue, or red for important notes such as exceptions or errata. So I don't know if they've like marked errata, used red to mark errata in here from the first version of the system or not, or from the second version of the system, which would be the French Foreign Legion one. So yeah, I'm not sure. I haven't actually read through these yet. But then you've got the magazine that's got your articles dealing with these particular campaigns and how they were broken down. So yeah, and usually the articles in S&T are not too bad. And then in this case, these came wrapped or like shrink wrapped essentially. So there was 2 counter sheets, and again, these are all using illustrations on them as opposed to the NATO symbols. So that definitely again adds a little more character to them. I know there's going to be the rivet counting purists out there that only want NATO symbols on everything, but I happen to enjoy illustrations like these on counters, especially for stuff from this era when uniforms were, much more interesting to look at in general. So for these maps, now these are glossier maps, which is too bad. A little heavier paper stock, but very glossy. And this one goes lengthwise. Second Afghan War and Asante. This is the Abyssinia one here. This says Second Afghan War, but I think they're just considering that the title of the whole game. But this is the Abyssinia map. Graphics are a little improved, certainly, over what's on here, even what's on the French Foreign Legion maps, because these were about 12 years later. So a little better graphically, at least in terms of map graphics. The charts, again, if you're colorblind, that's going to be bad for you because those are red and green charts. So not colorblind friendly. This is going to look the same as that. You know, the chart that's like, hey, everything's just gray. That's great. I'm not colorblind, but I have friends who are, that I have to, you know, we have to work around it in games sometimes, so that they can distinguish the pieces from each other. In this case, they'd be trying to distinguish charts from each other, and yeah, counters too. There's a nice red and green mix of counters there too. So something that publishers always need to be aware of when they're doing this sort of thing. Here's a Sante here, a very small map in that case. So that's a small campaign. And then we've got, this would be the second Afghan war, because that one was, that was the Persian campaign there. So this will be the second Afghan war. I think there's multiple scenarios from the second Afghan war too. So this is a much larger map in this instance. And then again, the same problem with the red and green, the red and green charts. But I do like having the charts on the map again. That's something I always enjoy. So yeah, graphically a little bit nicer. Still, you know, I don't know, fonts and colors and stuff are a little uninspired for DG. I don't know. It's something, you know, you could say that the old SPI, the old Simonson maps were also like all samey looking and uninspired, but there was something very clean and functional about those, whereas some cases, and this doesn't, but certainly like these older ones do, where, I don't know, the composition, the charts, the fonts and sizing and everything all feels a little more amateurish. This stuff feels a little more professional in terms of, I don't know, how they're placed and what fonts they use and stuff like that. So it's a hard thing to put my finger on. It's sort of I know it when I see it kind of thing. It either looks professional or not, and more often than not, that older DG stuff was not particularly professional looking. But it certainly has gotten better, like I said. So anyway, that is a look at some what I anticipate to be fairly mediocre, perhaps poorly play-tested and poorly balanced games. But I am a real sucker for Victorian-era wars, and there's not a lot of places to get them. This certainly probably some of the only places that some of these campaigns are gamed, and for good reason. They're not campaigns themselves are not, you know, nail-biting, well-balanced things, but it is a way for you to at least do some exploration of these types of conflicts and confront yourself with the problems that the people involved in these conflicts would have faced at the time, however lopsided they may end up being. But anyway, I look forward to getting into these. I may do some video. I will probably play the Crimean War one first. I may do some video on some of these games, like I did it's been years ago now that I did the French Foreign Legion videos. But I may do some videos on these just to see and report back on whether they're any good, whether they compare favorably at all or not to the French Foreign Legion games. So we'll see.